I have with me a guest, and he is Jeffrey Horblit. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
And Jeff, you're a former FBI special agent,
That's right.
Also a district attorney, and currently the chairman and CEO of Northeast Intelligence. So you've got both an investigator and a prosecutor.
That's correct.
Jeff, what's your bet as the FBI prepare for this press conference? Do you think they're going to reveal something?
Well, I do think they'll certainly give a progress report. The nature and the depth of that report, I think, is going to depend on what has occurred over the last 48 hours. There's been a lot of speculation about photographs being produced, and I suspect that there will be, but more importantly, I think it's important to remember that whatever is presented and disclosed, that the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the authorities that are investigating this have got to strike a balance between what can be disclosed and what should be disclosed.
Now, in the case of the photographs, what's the tension there as the FBI decide whether to release them or whether to keep them to themselves?
The tension is that you've got to be very careful about what is said about the photographs. If you produce photographs, if you present photographs and you identify people as suspects versus persons of interest versus people who you just have an interest in identifying, it's important that there be clarity as to exactly what the purpose is for which you're trying to identify people.
Now, you've worked on big, high-profile cases like this. You worked on the investigation into the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Just how many people do you think from the FBI are currently at work?
Well, I'm sure there's hundreds, and if you include all of the people that play any role in this investigation, including analysts, allies overseas, there could well be several hundred, if not more than 1,000. So there's quite a few people, I'm sure, working on this.
Now, there's been a lot of chaos so far in the reporting of this, as you know, with some reporting yesterday of an arrest that was then denied completely by the FBI. What effect does that have on the investigation? The fact that there's so much pressure and so high profile, and all the news organizations are competing to have a scoop.
I think it reflects the need and the desire for everybody to have more information, and it highlights the tension between the media's desire to inform the public and law enforcement's need to maintain the integrity of an investigation. There is always going to be some information that can be shared, and then there's other information that simply cannot be shared, certainly early in an investigation. Trying to find the right balance, striking that right balance can sometimes be a challenging task.
And tell us, when the FBI looks at these photographs and how there are people of interest in them, how do you then go about trying to identify those people? What's the process?
Well, there's many ways, but obviously the most simplest is to show them to people and ask them if they recognize people in the photographs. If there are...
But if you have no idea where they live, what their name is, what do? You scan it into a computer?
Presumably the FBI will take advantage of all the technologies that are available. Obviously the quality of the photographs will dictate how successful that technology may or may not be. But there's sort of a link. You can try and identify one person, see if they recognize the person next to them. If they recognize the person next to them, it may be family members, maybe friends. To the extent that you can identify everybody in the photograph, obviously that's the ideal. Not always something that's going to be accomplished, but that would be the goal.
It seems like the FBI has made pretty rapid progress on identifying exactly the kind of devices that were used.
I think that reflects the commitment to the work that they're determined to do in this case. There has been great progress, and the evidence that has been uncovered is a result of a patient, methodical crime scene search by the evidence response team and the other first responders.
And how much pressure is on FBI agents at this point? They're working around the clock?
Well, there's FBI agents, and there's also other law enforcement agencies involved that are, I don't know that I would call it pressure as much as it's pressure, but it's self-induced. Most of these people are very highly motivated, and they want to do the right thing. And
so do you think they're working around the clock?
I think there's, I think there's people working around the clock on this case, no question about it. Is every person working around the clock? No, everybody has to take a break at some point. But there's no question that there are people assigned and working on this case around the clock.
Now, what impact does it have on the perpetrators of this when the FBI hold a press conference and say, we have these people that we are potentially interested in? Does it make them go to ground?
I think it depends on the person. I think there are some who are are defiant and will take a position of, so what? And I think there's others who may see it as indications that the net is closing. And so a lot depends on what's disclosed, a lot depends on the personality of the people involved.
I thought it was interesting at the press conference the other day when the investigating officials were saying someone knows who did this. Is that a way to try and encourage those who are out there who maybe know something but don't realise that they know it, to jolt them into coming forward?
It could. It certainly, that's one reason to do that. It's sort of stating it's trying to make it clear to everybody that somebody knows something. And you may not know everything about what has happened, but you may know something that may be relevant. So whether it's somebody who you heard discussing buying a certain object, ordinarily that may mean nothing to you, but in circumstances like this, it may be worth it to you to pick up the phone and call someone.
Because it was one of the things that was noted was, is there someone out there who suddenly took an interest in the Boston Marathon or was suddenly researching pressure cookers online?
Absolutely, that's exactly right. If you have somebody who's showing an interest in something like a pressure cooker, and that person's never, been much of a cook in their life, that might be a signal that maybe this is not what you thought it was.
Jeff, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
We'll